So let's begin. Thank you everyone for joining for tonight's early childhood learning series. We are doing the SIP for autism. And for those of you who are not familiar with CPAC, we are the Parent Training Information Center for the state of Connecticut. And our mission is to educate, inform, and empower families of young children ages 0 through 6 and families of children with disabilities ages 0 to 26, I should say. For today's presentation, we have Goviana Morales and Kiomary Sotillo, and I will let you ladies introduce yourselves.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Goviana Morales. I am a parent, a bilingual parent consultant at CPAC, and I am a parent of a child of 2 children with disabilities, one who has autism.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kiomary Sotillo, Kio for short. I am also a bilingual parent consultant through CPAC since 2012. I currently have 2 children with IEPs and one with a 504, and one of them, my oldest, second oldest, who's 19, has a diagnosis of autism as well. Giovanna, give it back to you.
Okay. Well, everyone, we are here for the SIP for Autism training. Give me one moment while I just change my screen here.
Let me know if you want me to, because I'm the one presenting.
Yes, go
Ready?
ahead. Yes.
Wait, it's not me. Hold on. Do you want to explain this?
Yes, you will have access. So this is the digital SIT kit. We will be giving you access to this after we've presented. We will also put it in the chat, and we will also email you the access to the SIT kit. You have access to it in Spanish and in English, and we will go through some elements of what the SIT kit contains. But if you click on it on your cell phone, you have time, you'll be able to see and have access to both the English and Spanish version of the SIT kit. What is SIP for Autism? SIP for Autism was developed by Southern Connecticut State University. It was designed to provide information for parents and caregivers to share with their babysitters about caring for children with autism. Why SIP for Autism? The purpose of this is for parents of students with disabilities have difficulty leaving their children home without knowledgeable babysitters or parents or family members. Many parents want to be involved in PPT meetings, which are parent placement team meetings, which happen to be for children who receive special education and or other educational decisions pertaining to their children, but can't leave their children home alone. Parents need to feel comfortable leaving their children home alone with a babysitter. Feeling comfortable would be a big stress relief for parents to attend meetings that have to do with school or just leisure. Our goal is for SIP for Autism will provide parents and caregivers with materials and information to share with their babysitter about how to care for their children with autism. Today's objectives are to define autism spectrum disorder, understand strengths and challenges of ASD, identify useful strategies to use with children with ASD, use SIT kit materials to prepare for babysitting. Introductions, Kio mentioned this earlier. If you can please, just for the sake of time and for us to be able to go through all the slides, if you can share your name, your child's name, tell us about your child or tell us why you're here today. You don't have to be a parent, but if you can share for the reason that you're here today would be helpful for everyone. What is autism spectrum disorder? Autism is a condition that impacts how the brain works. Autism typically appears during early childhood. It can impact a person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self-regulation. Autism is a spectrum condition that affects individuals differently to varying degrees. Common strengths of children with autism: they have good stamina, enjoy routines and schedules, good long-term memory, accurate with learned tasks, good recall, and visual and memory and memorizes easily, decode written work, follow concrete rules, very honest, and visual learners.
Is there anything that you yourself have heard of a child or a person with autism that you would like to share with us? Anybody want to add?
You can put it on the chat or raise your hand or just say it.
Can you repeat the question, Kio?
Absolutely. So these are common strengths that we hear of children with autism, but I want to ask if there's anything that's missing. Is there anything that they would like to add to these 9 different strengths?
Liliana said determined.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? If not, we'll just move it along.
Akio, I wanted to point out, I think it's important that we understand the strengths so that when we go through the kit, we're going to build on that. So most of the things that we're going to use, and we'll show that a little bit later, is using some of these strengths to your advantage.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Challenges for children with autism spectrum disorder. As I mentioned earlier, there's the behaviors and the social communication piece. Challenges for children with autism disorders. We're going to show a brief video here.
I have to stop it so I can show the video. Hold on.
No problem.
With autism may engage in repetitive movements with their body, such as jumping in place, hand flapping, toe walking, or spinning in circles. They may also seek visual sensory stimulation, such as eye gazing or peripheral eye gazing, when they look out of the corner of their eyes. Visual self-stimulatory behavior may also occur when a student gazes at their hands or other objects, such as watching items spin, watching items fall, or looking at items that are lined up. Students with autism may also have auditory self-stimulatory behaviors in which they repeatedly make sounds or noises in order to hear them. Students with autism may also engage in oral self-stimulatory behaviors. For instance, they may play with their saliva, put their fingers or objects in their mouths, or grind their teeth. Another way that students with autism may gain sensory input is through their tactile system or through touch. For example, they may have favorite materials to touch, such as soft or fuzzy items. Finally, students with autism may gain sensory input through repetitive smelling behaviors, such as picking up items and smelling them before using the items, or smelling their hands. Now you have learned that the diagnosis of autism is made up of difficulties in socialization and communication.
Thank you, Kiro.
Absolutely. Can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to go back to slide 10 real quick. That I want to point out that individuals with autism have core challenges in behavior and social communication. And in this presentation, we're going to break them into 3 areas: behavior, social, and communication. And we're going to look at each one and share strategies for babysitting that's impacted by each. And that's why we show you the video, so that you can get a sense of those differences in regards to behavior.
Thank you, Kio. And if anyone has any comments or has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We want to be able to answer those questions as we go through the slides, if you have any, or any comments you'd like to add. So children with autism can act very different. They play differently with toys or objects. sensitive to sound, taste, and touch, difficulty to change an activity because of their rigidity, like things to stay the same, like schedules and routines, possibly hit, yell, argue with you or themselves, may not make eye contact, may use repetitive physical movements, rocking, hand flapping, clapping, sounds. Helpful hints to reduce anxiety and minimize challenges. Review the sick kit preparation guide for successful strategies and parents use.
So this is what we're going to be doing now with you guys as we show you pages 1 through 12.
Correct. And this is going to give you, it's a process of you preparing or the parents filling out some information, going through it with you so that you are prepared to sit for the child.
And this
So
is an opportunity, I was going to say, for the parent to sit with the child care provider. It's also an opportunity for the parent if they're working with a child's teacher. Because if you look at the forms, you can fill out these forms. You can also share them with your child's school. So don't think it's just limited to someone watching your child in the home. It could be at a daycare setting. It could be at school. It could be at a play group. It could be at your church, children's center. So think of it in those terms. How are you able to transfer some of these learning opportunities in other areas with your child?
Thank you, Kio. It's a great way for someone to get to know your child. Go ahead.
Anything you want to say about this page?
So this is the introduction. Sitting for individuals with autism can be challenging because no two children with autism are alike, right? They're very different. In order to make the babysitting experience as positive as possible for all involved, some preparation work is recommended before spending time alone with the child. The Sit for Autism kit provides the resources for babysitters to use, become more familiar with the children they'll be caring for. So this is what Kio said about taking that time, parent fills this out, and then taking that time to go through the pages and get to know the child. So there's an information guide, and this is just basic information, the child's name, the age, languages spoken in the home, household members, the address, demographic information, basically, telephone number, where to call, questions for an emergency. And then you have an emergency contact form, which includes the police department, fire department, the poison control, doctor, hospital, where's the fire extinguisher, first aid kit, flashlight location.
I was going to point out if the child has a family name, this is also an area where you would make a notation for the person caring for your child. Sometimes children are nonverbal and they're not able to tell another person that's watching them. Maybe it's a new person that's watching them, that the family doesn't normally call them by their name. Maybe they have a special name for them. So keep that in mind. And you really want to make this information accessible. So once you have created this, you want to keep it in a central location where anyone watching the child can have immediate access to it. You want to be able to point it out. You want to review it as much as possible in case something has changed. Sometimes you have a great relationship with one family member and now they've moved. So now you have a new person. So you update it as needed. It's a working document. And then there's some people who you're going to call for emergencies. And then there's some people that you can just call just to ask questions. So that's why there's that distinction at the bottom of the information page, who to call for questions. And then there's your emergency contact.
Thank you, Kio.
Mm-hmm.
So you have household hints, rooms like to be in. So which rooms does the child like to be in, right? We talked about the rigidity. We talked about routines. We talked about schedules and the importance of those things for children with autism. So knowing basic things about what room do they like to be in? They prefer to be in the living room. They prefer to be in their room. And is that okay? The home, areas of the home to avoid, right? Which areas of the home that the child does, that door has to be kept closed. For instance, a basement, right? Most kids are scared of a basement. A child with autism, that fear may be heightened. So keeping that door closed. Rooms that there should not be in, how to turn off water, gas, oil, etc. Important information about the house. The back door doesn't, you have to lift it up and close it a certain way. Little things like that is important to know because that can change the outcome of how you sit for that day. Medical information, medications that need to be taken, what schedules, medical conditions, allergies, right? Knowing that they can't have eggs, peanuts, all of those things, or milk are very important. What to look for. So if by chance there is an exposure, what does that look like for that child? It can be very different across the board of a child with an allergy, but what does that look like? You know, he may start getting hives, or his eyes get swollen, those type of things, so that you can identify if there was a case, what to do. And then there's a portion of what to do. What do you have to do if that were the case? My special equipments, what to use, how to use it. So we did touch base on some sensory pieces of children with autism. And this is important to know that if they have a special equipment that they use, whether like a fidget toy or a special chair or a swing, these are important to know what types of equipment that child likes, when to use them, and how to use them. And when to use them can be very identifiable in the sense that, oh, if he starts flapping his hands a certain way, or he starts rocking back and forth a certain way, and you see it happening more and more, then that may tell you that he needs a sensory break, or he needs to do something in with his special equipment. And then there is a special instructions at the bottom if there's very specific instructions for that. Like he can only be there for 5 minutes. My typical schedule, go ahead.
I was going to say, this is the where timers come into play.
Yes. So my typical schedule, this is where timers are very, very important. And we'll show you some videos on some timers. But when kids want to keep a schedule and they're very rigid, sometimes breaking them away of something that they like can be very difficult, or having the visual need to see what's next. So the visual timer can help with that. So time for the morning, afternoon, evening, transition tips. So what happened typically in the morning time, what happens? Breakfast, brush your teeth, breakfast, those type of things. And then you have a timer for that so that they know once the timer's done, we're going to the next activity, or the, whatever's next on the list. So for meals and snacks, children with autism can tend to have very specific food that they eat. And it is very important that we know that, and what times they should eat, where they should eat, what will not be eaten, special equipment. So if they need they require a special bowl or a special spoon to be able to eat, special instructions on preparation. So those are all things that are very important, so that the routine doesn't change for that child. And for children with autism, again, that routine and that rigidity is very important to keep. So whether parents are home or not, keeping the same routine that the parents have when their child, that keeping that same routine is very important. So what time is breakfast? What time is lunch? What time is dinner? Where do they like to eat, and what do they like to eat? And their food allergies, which we discussed but this is another area where it can be there, so that you can look for that. Bedtime routine. Do they need a book read to them? Do they need a timer? Do they have a certain routine that they need to go to sleep? Do they listen to a certain song before going to sleep? Do they have a routine of whatever that routine is? It's important to list it here, so that, again, we're not changing the child's routine and you're not creating an area of discomfort for the child. And then what to do if the child can't sleep. So for example, if the child is on a sensory overload, what can be done? And this is where it might say refer to special equipment. And then you would refer to the special equipment to say, okay, this is what we need to do if we run into this. And then you have the special instructions. When I need assistance. So this is a sensory issue, the sensory overload. If a child is with autism who may be overwhelmed with a lot of noise, or there was a lot of activities that day and they're on a sensory overload, what do I need for that? It could be, sometimes kids with autism tend not to like tags on their clothes. So making sure that when you're picking their clothes, right, that that, okay, it can't have tags, or certain material because they don't like that material, or a certain shoe because they don't like the shoe. Brushing hair or brushing teeth can be a big thing. So knowing those things about bathing and grooming and toileting are going to be very big for you being able to be successful in babysitting that child. Behavior supports. So when this is, of course, this is the parent filling it out. So this is what they're saying. When the child feels a certain way, this is what it looks like. How will it be handled? Helpful hints that will help support that. Things to, I can't see it really good.
Which one, Mama?
How to handle things that can get fixated.
That's
Yep,
their
okay.
attention.
So these are all things that will let you know how to identify behavioral aspects of the child. And if you are identifying them, how to handle them. So again, this is where they would be putting, if you see a lot of hand flapping or you hear a lot of humming, that may be that the child needs a break. That may be we need to visit again that document about the special equipment for them to sort of calm themselves down. What does that look like? And this is the purpose of this, is to help you identify those things before they become an outburst or a problem. This is to help support that child along throughout their process, throughout their day. So for example, hitting a head on the table, what does that mean? So if the child is hitting his head on the table, that means he wants something. Use pictures of favorite things of choice. So there should be on the behavioral support, it should be listed, what things does he like? What things can you use? And those behaviors can give you an example of he may be wanting something and what does he want? And then you can show them pictures to identify what is it that he needs or that child needs. Because some children have that communication. Not all children, but some do, and they cannot communicate and say, this is Anita, that I'm hungry. I need to use the bathroom. And this is their way of expressing themselves. It may not necessarily be hitting their head, but the parent will be letting you know what is their way of communicating with you. Helpful hints to reduce anxiety and minimize challenges. Use visuals to structure transitions. Explain rules. Complete tasks. Work with the child's strengths. So I'm not sure if you remember, I think it was slide 10, I mentioned of building on those strengths. So we're working on the child's strengths. So they like routines, they like visual, they like having rules and knowing what is to be expected. So based off of that, we're going to use that. Work with child's strengths, written language, if they can read. Picture photos if possible.
So we're gonna show 2 videos here. Oh, I'm gonna go with this one first.
You can find the picture of
So
Matt.
Oliver, set the timer. And first you're going to do some coloring. And then you're going to go on the computer for music class.
And then we're gonna have one.
And then we'll have lunch. So the timer's all done. So we're going to be done coloring. And then what do we have next? We're going to go back on the
Computer.
for
What
music class.
was
Okay.
mine for how much minutes?
For 30 minutes. You want to set the timer for 30 minutes?
That's a half a minute.
Half an hour.
Is that?
All right, let's go log in.
I want to point out how empowering that is, that she was able to do that herself and she was able to identify, we're going to color. And then it wasn't lunch yet, but you know, that mom was able to, or the person was able to redirect her and say, okay, now we got to do the timer. And they were able to put the timer, and being able to see that visually helps them process, okay, I have to do this. I have a timer. As the timer goes and the time diminishes, that red piece on the timer goes away and they know that they're getting closer to the next mark, which was lunch. Helpful hints to reduce anxiety and minimize challenges.
So this is where we're gonna do the video then and
Okay.
now. I'm gonna go into the links. Hold on, I gotta go do this. Do you guys have any questions about anything that's been presented so far? Do you want to add anything? Nobody wants to contribute anything?
Hi. Actually, the only thing I would have to say is that this information should be shared with schools and bus drivers, because a lot of information parents don't like to share it, and then people like bus drivers, they have to endure this and they don't know how to help them, and instead they just have a hard time.
Thank you for sharing that. We really would like for this information to be accessible to anyone that is in the care of a child with autism, or even a social communication disorder, or maybe they're nonverbal. Because it's really helpful when it's hands-on. And if you notice, we're trying to minimize language as much as possible as well, because we really want to make it as manageable as possible so that people can do this, right? It's not just us having this conversation with you, but we want to make sure that when you're done, you can take this kit and you can put it into use. If you're a daycare provider, that you can print these materials out and start using it with the kids that you're in care of. If you're a parent, that you get excited about using this with your own child, so that if you have a grandmother, if you have an auntie or an uncle watching your child, because sometimes people are afraid of taking care of kids with special needs because they automatically think of all the things that could go wrong. This kind of helps minimize some of that, right? Because if they're thinking, well, this can go wrong, well, hey, here you go. Here's this sheet. Here's this one. This is what you can do. This is what I've been doing. You can share the videos. You know, we've tried to include videos that are quick and easy for you to watch, for you to share with your family members. Depending on the culture that you're from, you know, sometimes it takes a little bit longer to have buy-in from your family members to understand that autism isn't going away. It's not something that you can turn off. It's not something that if you put them in timeout, you know, for an extended amount of time, all of a sudden they're going to get out of that thinking chair and the kid is going to behave differently. So we have to rethink how we support our children with special needs, and move away from this idea that, you know, some families still use spanking as a form of discipline. So how else can we support these kids and put things in place? How are we preparing the environment for these kids? So thank you for sharing that. I want to be able to show this video for you as well. I did put the closed caption in the bottom for you in case the sound is not so great. If you can't hear it, please let me know and I'll try to do my best to make sure. Can you see the video?
Yes.
Okay.
Less desired activity in the first box, or now and then cards. Essentially, the way you would use these is you would put the less desired activity in the first box. So, for example, writing or reading in these ones. And then you would make the second box the more desirable activity, so that the student knows they have to do this first one and then they can move on to the more desired activity. I would suggest using a timer so that the student also knows that they have a certain amount of time to work on each of those activities. This will help them with independence and understanding routine, understanding consequences. So first you do this, then you do that. And they're all free and downloadable from.
Get out of there, go back to the presentation.
I wanted to share that Liliana Torres shared, I think, adding a favorite activity as well as reinforcements to promote positive behaviors. Thank you, Liliana. And then that's a great way for the first and then cards, adding that favorite activity as a reinforcer. You do this, and then you get to do your favorite activity, or, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah. And you said something else, Gio. I think this is great for nonverbal, but I think you can use this, certain aspects of this, and use it for any child with any type of disability, because there's certain aspects of this that just getting to know the child on paper, knowing what are their strengths and knowing how can you identify areas in them that you can see that they're getting frustrated can help in any help with any child with a disability.
Absolutely. So in this one, it's to help families to be able to set up a schedule to follow during the time that they're with the individual. Sometimes families can do some prep work before that person that's going to watch the child. So giving them a heads up as soon as, they're able to. So if they know on Friday they're going to go out, or, they're going over the weekend, they can start prepping the child so that they know, such and such is going to watch you. They're going to watch you in the house. These are the things you're going to be able to do with them, so that the day that when it happens, then the child is kind of prepared for that. Help follow some schedule or routine that would be followed by the family. So keep in mind, we're not asking for someone to reinvent anything. They're really supposed to be following the routine of the home and not necessarily creating a new routine for the child. We have some examples in the SICK kit. You can use the schedule with pictures or words to help move from one activity to the next. As I showed you in the quick video, using first and then cards, the idea is that you're going to use the cards to help motivate the child to complete an activity. And a lot of times we start off with the non-preferred activities, and then we move towards something that they would like to do. And of course, as a reinforcer, it could be something that they're excited about.
Kio, there are some comments in the chat. The
Yes.
first one is from Liliana, and she says, I think adding his favorite activities as well as reinforcements to promote positive behaviors. And Antonius has a question.
Yeah,
Why-
Goviana mentioned that one of Liliana, so thank you.
And Antonio says, why not use a reinforcement first strategy with a to earn reinforcement do activity?
That's a good question. And I guess because sometimes the idea is that we're going to give them a chance to do what they want to do after they do the thing that they're struggling to do. So if we start off with their preferred task, it may be harder to get them to stop doing their preferred task to get them to do the non-preferred task. So that's why we would like to start with the non-preferred, because this is the reward. Once you do this, you're going to be able to do that one thing that you want to do. So that's why we kind of reverse it that way.
Well, and they associate that behavior with that. So they associate, I have to do something to get something.
Mhm.
And it's with children with ASD, that routine and that sequence of doing this and doing that helps with that strength of them having a very rigid thought process in some ways. So that behavior reinforces that we have to do this to then get what you want.
Correct. So they have some cognitive inflexibility. They're really struggling to move away from the idea of I want, this is what I want, this makes me happy, it's pleasing to me. And when you're in certain settings, it's really hard to get them to do things that they're not interested in, especially when we put demands on them. And I think having the thing that they enjoy as a reinforcer is the motivator. It becomes an intrinsic motivation for them. Like, I really want screen time. I really want the iPad. I really want to use the phone. So I have to just get through this. And of course, when you set the timer and you have that as a visual, it helps them see, like, especially when you have these visual timers, I don't know if you can see the screen and you see the red, like they're able to see how quickly the red is going to shorten for them. And then they know that they're going to get that thing that they're hoping to get. So that, we'll hopefully have, the families can work on writing out what the typical schedule looks like. So what is a typical Friday night for this family? If they're going to watch them starting from the morning, then what does that look like? Getting up in the morning, what are the expectations? Because at the end of the day, we're not asking parents not to have expectations for their child. The idea is that you are going to have expectations for your child, and you're going to have anyone working with your child to have those same expectations. So it's really important that you write down a typical schedule and you don't leave it up to the whim of the person caring for them, because then that's when things could happen, right? Because you left some blind spots open. And if you have some activities for that day, like some planned activities, maybe this is a reward day, right? Maybe they can go to a museum or to the movies, or maybe to the park and take a walk. You want to spell it out as much as you can, especially if the person is new watching your child and doesn't really know, as much as possible that you can put and prepare for. It's really important for you to have ahead of time. This is an example of a schedule to use. And if you notice, there's wording and then there's pictures. Some kids do really well with words and some kids do better with having both together. And it's also good for pre-literacy skills. So keep that in the back of your mind. Even if you are going to use pictures, it doesn't hurt to add words to that, because you're going to start building the vocabulary for the child. Using first and then to motivate within an activity. So here you have an example: first read, then Legos. first math facts, then lunch. Here's another video on how to use a timer and the schedule to create the structure.
Okay, bud. The timer went off. So basketball is
Check.
all done. Then now we have
This is vanilla.
Mrs. Murillo and then break.
And I want to point out that if you notice, mom is using the language as well. So she's not just pointing to this schedule. She's using now, then, and pointing out what it is, the activity that the child's going to be doing. And it's really helping the child build vocabulary. Sometimes parents think, oh, well, he doesn't really speak, or he's not really speaking yet, or he has emerging language, but it's still not there yet. Don't take it for granted. These are always teachable moments. So it's just an opportunity to keep building on that. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let me get to the next screen. So here we're going to show some other videos for you to look at. It's not available. What happened? I checked earlier. Hold on.
Not Gil, we can use the other one, the longer one that we did today.
I don't know if it's the same topic though.
No, it's not, but we can.
No, I'll put this one. Hold on. Let me set it up with the captioning.
How old are you now?
5.
You're not 5. Yeah, good boy. You're 7. And who's that next to you?
Okay.
Yes, that's Dante.
Tony.
And you're Tony. That's right.
Tony has a star roller.
Do you want your car back? Promise not to throw it. All right, here you go. You can have the car back. What do you say?
Thank you.
Good boy.
The car's broken.
No, that's not broken. No, you don't want to take the wheels off.
It's broken.
It's not broken, Tony.
The car's broken.
Do you like going to school?
You like going to school?
Jackie, don't touch that.
Is it sad?
That's dirt.
Sad.
It looks like sand, yes.
What? Oh, go walk.
Go for a walk then. Dante, go chase your brother.
Back to Wow, it has lenses.
Yes, Subway has lenses. Do you like Mummy's new camera? What color is it?
Pink.
It's pink. And what else?
Black.
Yeah, good boy.
Brown.
Your car's brown. And what color are the tires?
Black.
Black. What color is Dante's singlet? One. What color is it?
Green.
Green. Good boy.
You want to do brown?
Okay, Tony, say bye-bye to the camera.
To the camera.
How do you wave properly?
Papa to the camera. Good boy.
So we want to be able to show you different ways that they communicate. I apologize that the other video I'm not able to show you at this time because it's not working. But we want to look at ways in how they talk, how they communicate, how they understand. They may use 1 to 2 words. They may not have any speech. They may sometimes even repeat the same words or speak in scripted language. So if they've seen a show that they really like, sometimes you may notice they'll use some of the language from their show. If they're repeating the same words or sentence, it's known as echolalia. So keep that in mind when you're hearing repeated speech. Back to you. They may only talk about one topic. They may really focus or hyper focus on things of interest. So if they love dinosaurs, that's the only thing they're going to want to talk about. They don't know how to have reciprocal language. Think about ways that they understand. So they may have some difficulty answering questions, difficulty following directions, especially if they're multi-step. So you really want to try to minimize language as much as possible. They may also have difficulty understanding facial expressions and body language. It may not be clear to them. Use unexpected behavior to tell you what they want or need. So it may not always be as obvious. So we have a sheet that we want to share with you in regards to communication. Are you able to see this sheet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So which is the best way to communicate with me? So think in terms that not all children are going to be able to use language to communicate, but they may use a device to communicate. They may use a picture schedule to communicate. They may use symbols to communicate, sign language. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're working with children that are on the spectrum. So you want, as much as possible, if you're a parent, to be able to let the person watching your child know how they best communicate their needs, if they're hungry, if they're tired, if they're sick, things that they usually say or do. So sometimes they may have special words for a particular thing. So if it's a bottle, they may say baba. They may not necessarily say milk. So keep that in mind. For toileting, how do they let you know that they are soiled or wet? Some children do not know when their body has to expel. So, how are you going to know? Are you going to wait and see if you're just going to check the diaper every hour, every 30 minutes? Does the child have some toileting skills down pat? Maybe they can go to the bathroom, they can sit in the toilet, but they have a difficulty pulling down their pants or pulling their pants up, or maybe it's the wiping. So as much as possible, figure out how they communicate. If it's to play, how can they let you know? Things to avoid, maybe it's maybe it's a 1-parent household. You have to avoid certain topics, or maybe there's certain things that, the parent knows is going to be a trigger for the child. So you want to make sure that you point that out. If there's any special instructions, please point that out. When it comes to leisure and play, you want to point out what are the favorite games and toys. How long should they be playing for, especially if there's a bedtime routine? You want to try to keep that in mind. If you're going to have them play with a special toy, are they going to be able to let it go at the end of the night? What do they like to watch? Is there something that's off limits? Favorite music and songs? What do you want them to avoid? If there's stimming behavior, what does that look like for your child? If they prefer to stim, is stim allowed? Some families don't want the child to stim, that flapping or the circles. My cousin's son, he has to always have this string that he twirls and he twirls and he twirls. And sometimes as he's twirling the string, he'll kind of lash it out towards people. So, you want to keep that in mind. How does he use whatever it is that he's using, if he has something in his hands, or she? How long can they do it for? Are there any special instructions in regards to that as well? If they're siblings, what are the name and ages? What do they like to do with their siblings? And any additional information that you can share. And then, of course, you want to point out general house rules. There's some things that are very specific to each home. Please feel comfortable highlighting that regardless of who's watching your child, because again, we want to keep the same routine. If there's homework, what is the homework routine? Any special instructions regarding that? You want to point it out. We've already shared this. So keep in mind, you're going to get access to all of these handouts and you'll be able to share them with the families you're working with. We talked about helpful hints to support communication because we showed you some of these videos, but you want to also make sure that you show the item and provide the choice, use objects or visuals, I want, and then have the strip cut out like we showed you in the example in the sick kit. You also want to allow time for the person to respond because a lot of times you'll ask a question, but sometimes it takes time for them to process what you're asking for and how their brain is able to respond. So don't feel like, oh, they don't have an answer. Make sure that you're really giving the time and space for them to respond. So this is the using I want card. So you're going to show them if you've done this. You can create your own, of course. It could be something really fun and exciting. It could be through technology. This is a low form tech, but you know, sometimes they have advanced technology that you could use. Let me see if this video, yep.
I have some. Do you want these? Marcus is very loving and very affectionate. We were blessed with him, and he is on the autism spectrum. I'm Renee Dunn. Marcus, look, I'm Marcus's grandmother. Look. Car? You have a car? He likes playing by himself. And whenever you would sit down with him, he would kind of move away. It's not the game. And he is getting very, very frustrated not being able to communicate.
His grandmother watches him while his parents work. When I first started working with Marcus, he was not talking, not saying any words. He had lots of babbling. He wasn't very interested in playing with others. I'm Jenny Sharpless. I'm a speech language pathologist here at the Kennedy Krieger Center for Autism and Related Disorders. The number one strategy we're going to work on today is just tuning in to what he's interested in and imitating him. So show me how you normally play at home.
Okay, what the first thing we would do is we would take them out. Now, if he didn't immediately take something, then I'd give him something. There you go. Very good, Marcus. Very good.
Great. So he was really good at that puzzle.
Yes.
But the one thing that I noticed is that he's playing and you're watching.
Yes.
I want you to be able to be his play partner. So what was he doing with this puzzle?
He was picking up each piece and putting it in.
Yeah. So then you will take your turn and do
So
what?
let him do one and then I'll do one.
Yes.
Which we do. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put one in. Two. Now you put one in.
Already the look of your play has changed. You were playing together. It looked like you were taking turns. It already looked more fun. One thing is we talked about not asking a lot of questions, not using a lot of generic type language, but looking at a toy and thinking about what's the most important vocabulary we can pick out from this toy. It's just looking at this simple puzzle. What are some vocabulary words that come to mind?
Colors as opposed to shapes. Or if colors were too difficult, I would count because he loves numbers.
Also, we can think of the action words. We put in and we take out.
Want to put it in? Which one? One. Can I do one? Two. So 1, 2. Go ahead. What number is that? 3.
As soon as we simplified her language, she joined him in play. He stuck with her longer and he started saying words, which was amazing. Has he ever seen this toy before?
No.
So he's figuring out that the balls can go in the holes. So thinking about the imitate strategy we did with the puzzle, what would you do to join in with his play? Now let me offer one suggestion. Come around and be more face to face with him.
This side.
Already it changes the look of your play. It looks like you're playing with him rather than
True.
just watching him.
So now I can take this. So we think it has to be something so difficult, and we have to have all this education about autism to work with them. Ready, set, actually, I've learned here with Jenny that it's just the little simple things that you do and simplify the way you think about playing with them that really helps them the most. Can I have a card?
So make sure you have your own. Because when you imitate him, you don't want to have to take his toy, because it's not about turn taking, it's about really imitating. Car. What are you going to do now that you have your own car?
I'm going to try to play along with him. Ready, set,
Go. And look, he is enjoying this so much. You're getting such nice eye contact. He's smiling at you. The next thing I want you to think about is your language. So we already know go is a word because he's saying it. Go. But what other words do you think can you think about with this toy?
Car.
Good. Renee, like lots of parents want to teach their child something new. That's where we get the next part of the strategy, the expand part. But we can think about expanding on our language a little bit and saying cargo or go car.
So to hear him say we because he was excited, or go because he knew it was time for the car to go down the ramp, it's wonderful.
This bus does exactly what he likes to do. He likes to put things in or on. So we can show him this toy. So make sure your positioning is also on your mind. When you're in this type of position, he can make eye contact with you easier. He can share smiles with you easier.
Off.
You know, especially in this era of technology, there's less emphasis on toys and just good old fashioned play.
Being in there and taking my turn, and it lets him have fun with it. Thank you.
Join in, do what they're doing, see what they're doing.
So I hope you enjoyed the video, and it really gives you a chance to really see and think about ways that you can communicate with your young child. And a lot of times we complicate things by default, right? Because we think we have to be the experts. But if you notice how simple language is able to get the child to do the things that you want them to do. And here's this grandmother. So you're never too old to learn, right? But here she is sitting with him and playing. And something that I hope you were able to see is that they're actually playing, right? Here is a child that she was thinking wasn't able to do play, but just by the way she rearranged how she was sitting in front of him, thinking in turns, not necessarily as turn taking, but imitating. So he's watching her and then he's doing what she's doing. And the other thing that she mentioned is the technology. Too often we see children that are stuck with a technology form of device, and it's taking away from that ability to expand on language and vocabulary because they don't have another person to ask questions, to be inquisitive about what it is that they're working on. You know, that physical play, it takes away from the fine motor skills and gross motor skills that we were so accustomed to seeing, because now they're just sitting there and their little brains is so immersed by so many images, and it's constantly going, that sometimes just sitting with a toy and try to problem solve and figure out to put it in and over and on is a skill that kids are losing by default of what they have accessible to them. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go back to the presentation. Hold on. Let me see.
And it definitely works.
I think that was how they play, how they talk. We already saw. The behavior is not going to show it to me. So that was the last one that I needed to show. Can you see this presentation?
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay, let me. Sorry about that. How about now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Any questions about anything that you've heard up until now? Do you want to give any feedback in regards to the video? Did you identify? Did it speak to you?
Lisa did put a comment that her grandson is almost 3 and was just diagnosed recently nonverbal, and he is the same way as the one in the video. So she was able to relate to that, and she thanked you for sharing the video.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Anyone else?
I just wanted to say briefly that my reaction to the video was to observe that they were engaging in joint attention. And joint attention is the ability that the child has and the parent or caregiver to interact with each other through play. And that's a very important skill for a young child with autism, because is the basis for social interaction.
Thank you so much, Adriana, for sharing that. So these are ways in how they play. They may have difficulty taking turns, sharing or playing games. They may not use the toys in the way that they were intended for. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you'll see that they'll line them up, or they'll, what is the other thing? They'll put them in, they line them up, or they put them on top of each other. Maybe it's the cars and they're not going to use them in the way you naturally see children use cars. So keep that in the back of your mind. They may prefer to be alone. They may like to have a favorite object, something that's really important to them. They may giggle, laugh, scream, or you may hear them make certain noises or sounds that they're very odd in some way. They may use, again, this is about using toys in odd ways, about lining them up. These are helpful hints to support with social interaction, because sometimes it is an area of difficulty for young children. This is part of the kit from pages 14 to 18. We did go over this in regards to leisure and play and siblings, the general house rules and the homework routine. These are ways in how to engage a child with autism. So using activities of their preferred interest. Engage with the toy of their ultimate preference. What do they like? So, some kids, they may be 16, but they still like the Teletubbies. Don't think because of their age, they're too old in order to have these likes or preferences. So keep that in mind. So the power of choice, it's so important that they feel like they have a choice. Let them choose what it is they want to do. We also shared some examples in the sick kid. Want to make sure that you're thinking in terms of the timer or visual timer to indicate when the activity is over, especially for non-preferred tasks, because it gives them a sense of knowing, well, this is going to end. This isn't going to be forever. I'm not stuck doing this thing that I don't like to do. And we saw some examples in the sick kit. You want to try to reward with positive praise. Maybe you have a token system in the home. Maybe it's stickers. But try to reward positive behaviors as often as you see them. A lot of times we point out when they're behaving in a way that we don't like, but we don't necessarily point out the behaviors that we do like. So keep that in the back of your mind. Using a choice wheel. So here is an example of what that looks like.
These are your choices, bud. You can either do basketball, go for a walk, or play soccer right now. Which one do you want to do?
Play basketball.
Play basketball. Okay, bye.
So this is another quick way of something that you can do really easy at home. It doesn't have to be something fancy. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you notice, these are laminated, so it's easy to change colors. You can add stickers. You can incorporate the child in designing these. This is in regards to theory of mind. So you want to keep in mind that children that are on the spectrum have a really hard time tuning into other people's perspective. If someone is sad, they may not understand why that person is sad. It may not be obvious to them that that person is sad. They can't read body language. They can't relate to that person's state of mind. It could be the beliefs or emotions, desires, or information that they may have knowledge of. So keep that in the back of your mind, that this is an area of difficulty for children that are on the spectrum. This is our top 10 list for success. It's really important that families have structure, and we can't emphasize it enough. Children on the spectrum, things must be predictable for them. They need them to be predictable. That's why school settings are so important, because they learn the routine and they know what to predict. And when things change for them, it can literally seem, and I remember one time, because my son's on the spectrum, I told his therapist how hard it was for him, you know, when he would go back to school. So say, for example, Monday he had gym and they had a long weekend. Monday was a holiday. When he went back to school, his first day back to school was technically Tuesday. But in his head, his first day after the weekend back to school is gym day. So if he didn't have gym, and he loved gym, that Tuesday was so hard for him to get him regulated. And we went through this every time it was a long weekend. So, you know, the predictability, he knew that after the 2-day weekend, he would go to gym and he wasn't able to realize, I actually had a third day off. I didn't go to school. I was actually at home and had a good time. So keep that in mind about that predictability. Consistency, you know, sometimes it's hard to be consistent, but it's so important to be consistent because it's how you're going to get the best results out of the children or the outcomes you're hoping for that you're watching. Using visuals, it really gives them a sense of what they can expect before, during, and after. Especially if you're using the boards, the picture boards, they're able to see what I'm doing now, what I'm going to do next, what I did. And I had a mom that she was talking in a video that I watched, and she's in our parent support group in a Spanish group that I have. And one of the things that she talked about was her daughter had a hard time learning about tomorrow, and it was hard for her. And the picture schedule was helpful in helping her daughter learn about what tomorrow meant. So when mom was going to go somewhere and she would say, well, tomorrow we're going to do it, she just didn't understand the concept of tomorrow. You also want to try to provide a warning time when the present activity is over. You know, you have 5 more minutes, you have 3 more minutes, you have 1 more, so that they know what to expect. Also give short, clear directions. A lot of times we just give too much information to our little people. So you want to try to really minimize language as much as possible. You want to leave time again for the child to answer. So some of this stuff does come across as repetitive, but that's because it's that important. We need to say it more than once. Be understanding and supportive. You may not get it right away. It may not work immediately. It's going to take several tries. It may take weeks. It may take months. But again, if you have the structure, if it's predictable, if you're consistent, if you're keeping up with this, it will get easier, and it should get easier. And then, of course, support with humility. This isn't a one size fits everyone. We understand that sometimes you need to modify and make some changes. So give yourself grace. This may not work for your family right now. It doesn't mean you can't pick this up at a later time and try again. We're sharing the code for the post survey link, but in the meantime, we want to be able to ask if you have any questions, if anything resonated with you, if you want to share about something that you've done with your child and it's worked. If you want to share with the group, this is a great opportunity for you to do that. If you have any questions for us, feel free to ask. Jovi, can you put the link to the post survey as well in the chat box?
I did. I'm going to do the post right now.
Perfect. So you could raise your hand, or you could put something in the chat box, or you can just speak up, whatever is easiest. Nobody wants to say anything? Well, if we don't have anyone that wants to talk or share feedback.
Well,
Sure.
I have questions because this is new to me because my grandson, who's gonna be 3 in January, we kind of knew because he was speech delayed, but then we noticed he went from no structure to structure because mom and dad decided to go to work at the same time, so he started daycare. And Kobe is like nonverbal, but when he gets angry, he bangs and he hits his head. And then we had birth to 3 come in, and birth to 3 did their assessments and did stuff. We're still doing birth to 3. And then we get them 3 days out of 1 week, and then the weekends that we got them 5 days. And I'm trying to do the structure. All of this stuff here is very informational, which is good to know. I mean, I raised my own 2 kids, single parent, and it's like you're starting all over again with your grandchildren. You forgot what you were doing. But now seeing this, because with Kobe, we try to like let him pick and choose. But I say to my kid and my son and his mom, we need to do structure because he's getting older. And that, but because he's nonverbal, when he gets angry, he throws tantrums. And we're working with the daycare, working with birth to 3. I'm working with mom and dad, but we're not all on the same page. So it's like kind of very difficult. And that, like, we finally got Kobe to now finally do eye contact and listen to him, which took a while. But birth to 3 is working with us and showing us and everything. And that what I'm looking to learn and to get to do is helping Kobe get to where he needs to get to.
So give yourself grace, right? You can only do as much as you're allowed to do, right? And also for the parents, it's also a learning curve, right? They're also learning their child. It's probably their first child, or maybe their first child with a disability. So they're also trying to figure out and navigate this process. It's also hard to be a parent of a child that's nonverbal, right? Because you have this idea when you're pregnant as a mom of all the things your kid is going to be and all the things they're going to achieve. And now some of that is put on pause. Not to say that they can't accomplish language at some point, but for right now, this is where we're at. So we have to figure out a new normal for this family. And then also coming to terms, right, with where their child is at currently. Not to say they can't make progress, but the progress is going to look different than that of a typical peer. So I'm really glad to hear that you're working with Birth to 3. I feel like Birth to 3 is such a great resource. A lot of times families, you know, bless you. A lot of times they start with Birth to 3 a lot later in the process, so they don't really get the full benefit of early intervention services.
Yes, because we started it. Sorry to interrupt you. We started it because I had the pediatrician started. I said, Kobe's 2 years old. He would say hi or bye one time and then never say it again. Mama, dada, one time, never again. We kind of try to do where now I'm getting more with Kobe. He'll take my hand, he'll take me to the refrigerator and I open it. I know he wants some milk or juice. So I make him point and he'll grab what he wants. Because Birth to 3 is showing us that even though he's nonverbal, let him bring you to what he wants. So that way he identifies what he wants. And let
that's
him
his way of communicating. So he's communicating. And when he's having a meltdown, that's his way of communicating that his needs are not being met. So even though he doesn't have the language to tell you I'm upset, I am not getting what I need, he's telling you, well, he's showing you, he's exhibiting through his behaviors that something's a little off for him. So thank you for sharing.
When he doesn't like something, he'll bang his head or he'll hit his head against the sofa or something. So that's how I came to where I told mom and dad, I said, he's angry. He went from no structure, because Kobe was able to do whatever he wanted, when he wanted, to going to daycare full time. So it was a big change for him. You know, it was like he was able to do his iPad, do the TV, do his toys were always to his convenience. So then when daycare came in, the structure is really hard, even though he's come a long way now because he's been in daycare now for 6-7 months. So they're working and Birth to 3 is coming in and that. And then they're trying to do our health. They're not too much worried about speech therapy because we got to get them to first sound off, make the babbling noise, make those sounds before we could start with speech therapy.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else would like to add anything? I saw that Rosa asked if there were any resources for families that haircut and play dates. And Adriana mentioned we have a support group for families of young children, and she posted the Facebook link. So if you're not looking at the chat, please do, because it could connect you to this Facebook group. We also have Family Connections. It's a program that we have through Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center, where we offer parent mentors. The support can be done either virtually, through text or phone call, so keep that in mind. We also have parent consultants that you can talk to our office if you have any questions about the transition out of birth to 3 into the special ed system. We have a program called Pre-K Pathfinder. So if you find yourself that you're going to be transitioning out, please contact our agency so that we can support this next step. Just want to remind everyone that we have a post surveys. Please fill it out. Going through the chat just in case we
And Liliana, I replied to you thinking you were Rosa, but yes, if you're a birth to 3 provider, we also have support for birth to 3 providers. We can attend some transition conferences with parents, and we definitely help guidance families who are going through the transition process. So keep that in mind. I put in the links for you to refer your families to us. And for Rosa, I will continue to research about the resources that you would like to have, and I'll email you.
I didn't see in the chat, and we had asked for you to please introduce yourself, and we still have a few minutes, so I want to make sure that we've had an opportunity. So if you want to share your name and why you joined tonight's session, that'll be great. In any order, feel free to just raise your hand or just take yourself off mute.
Hi. So my name is Lisa Dirisari. The reason I wanted to join this, I'm a student at Southern, and I'm going to be a teacher in elementary bilingual education, and it's always very useful to have this kind of information. And I've been doing some research in the past, and I got an email, and I thought this would be a great seminar to attend to brush on some of the knowledge already gained and I can use in the future in my classroom.
Thank you for saying that, Lisa. Anyone else?
Liliana shared that she is a developmental specialist for birth to 3, and she joined for more information, resources to learn about, and to share, as well as offer some insight.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Nope, I don't see anything on Facebook either.
Okay.
I posted the post survey. Oh no, we have Kelly Harris. I do autism evaluations for birth to 3, Wheeler Clinic, and in private practice. I attended because I'm always looking for supports and resources for families. Rosa shared that she's learning about more resources.
Well, I hope you can take, did you share the link for the presentations? I mean, we're gonna email it, but just in case they want it right now.
I shared the links to the digital kits in English, both in English and Spanish. I just reshared it again, just in case someone missed it on the chat. And I will post the post survey once again. Please do give us some feedback. It only helps us if there's any gaps or things that we need to change. So please give us that information. And then you have the links to the SIT kit in English and in Spanish.
And feel free to share it with families that you're working with, or maybe you want to do, if you're a professional, you want to sit down with the family initially to help them fill it out, because maybe they look at the kit and it seems overwhelming, but maybe some of the work that you can do is for each visit, work on 1 or 2 sheets to kind of make it more manageable for them. Sometimes it's helpful when someone is working with them. So keep that in mind, but definitely please share with others. We really want to make this family friendly. And if you have any suggestions on how we can improve it, we'll definitely share it back with the Center of Excellence on Autism Spectrum Disorders. This is their kit. They created this and we're collaborating with them to present. So thank you so much for your time. You have, well, I'll put it now, our contact information. If in the future you want to refer families to us or you think we can support them, feel free to reach out. Anything you want to add, Adriana?
No, I just want to thank everyone for participating, and thank you, Kio and Goviana, for this wonderful presentation.
I also put the number to our main office. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a lovely holiday season.
Absolutely. Happy
Thank
holidays,
you.
and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.